Hey guys, it's Adrian here. Hope you guys like this video. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel down below for more mixing and recording tutorials. I also do guitar videos and I'm posting videos up twice a week. Have a good one.
To bring up and mix from bottom to the top. So you can see I like to work from drums first to bass, across the guitars and vocals. The reason I like to do that is your foundation of your mix really comes from your drums, really starts from your kick drum. So you match your kick with your snare and then you get your overall drum sound you want. And then you use your bass, you match your bass with your kick drum mainly, get them to sit about right. And then you bring up your guitars, get those to sit well with your overheads and the rest of your kit. And then bring up your vocals, and you need to make sure your vocal balance really works well with your guitars and everything else. And then do fine tweaks from there. So that's really my philosophy to mixing and getting set up. So we'll just play the song from the start and I'll begin mixing, and then I'll go over everything that we need. Go over everything that I do. So what I was doing there was I'm bringing up the kick outside mic. As you can see, this bass drum, also the kick drum, obviously, was mic'd up with two microphones. The kick in would have been a microphone inside, and the kick out would have been a microphone further back around the bass drum end. And really what you want to do is you want to make sure that the phase on both of these microphones arrives at the same time. So by changing this phase button, it'll be 180 degrees out of phase when you take it out. And you could hear that when I took it out, a lot of the low end went away. So that means that these microphones were recorded in phase. So that's just a general concept of phase. You want to make sure when you check it that both of these channels are around the same level. So that way we will give you the best indication. So let's continue. Okay, so what I was doing there was I was first adding a gate, so that way I can remove some of the bleed coming from the outer parts of the drum kit or some of the other instruments. And by using the gate, what you would do is you would set a fast attack time, so that way the gate would it would open up pretty quickly. And then the release, it would open whenever the gate kind of. So I'll play it back in the track. The release is how long the gate's going to open for. And then this floor means how much of the reduction it's going to do. So it's going to do 60 dB. Next thing I was doing was just adding a little bit of a high pass filter set at 30 Hertz. That's just going to clean up any of the really, really low rumble, and it's going to tighten up the sound. It's going to add some saturation, which is going to add more sustain to the kit. It's going to make it sound a bit more warmer, a bit grainier. Next thing I'm going to do is add some equalization. So 8K here, usually a good spot to start if you want to add more clickiness to the kit, which will really help it cut through the mix. So I did a big boost there. And 3K, I was kind of trying to find where a lot of the beta is, so I boosted there. And then 400, 350, drums could sound pretty muddy, a bit boxy. So they really added a bit more definition. And I boosted some low end. Next, I'm using some compression. The three main types of compression you're going to use are VCA, which is really fast and it's quite punchy for drums. FET, which is great on drums as well. Really good for adding punch and adding a little bit more sustain. So I went with that for the kick drum. And opto compression is quite slow. It's very warm and smooth sounding and very upfront. Although on drums you do lose quite a lot of punch, so I didn't go there. And then on the kick out, I'm using the SSL channel compressor. And I'm doing VCA compression. Fairly fast release. Again, doing no more than 3 dB of gain reduction. So I was in context trying to match these two and get the right sound out of both of them. So we'll move on now to the snare drum. I'm just going to start the snare drum so you can get a bit of an idea of what it sounds like. First thing I want to do again is I want to gate it. I want to remove a lot of the bleed, a lot of the hi-hat from it. So I'm just going to load up. Just going to load up an easy gate. This is a stock standard one Pro Tools, a Dyne Free expanded gate. And we'll set this range to do 80 dB of reduction. We'll set the tack fast as it can be. And we'll change the ratio to be 100:1. So this is really extreme types of compression. And you can see how much noise it's reducing. So next we need to find the snare hits. And we need to adjust our release and our threshold. So somewhere around there is good. You can hear it's keeping the full tone of the drum. What you don't want to do is choke it and cut it off. So by having this release quite slow, it's making sure that when the gate opens, that it will be open long enough for the full tail of the snare drum to ring through. And same for this hold feature. So next thing I want to do is I want to add some tape saturation. I'm going to do Slate Virtual Tape Machines. And I'm going to increase the input, which bring the output down. Let's listen to that. So that's not too bad. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a gate for a compressor first. I usually EQ before I compress, but in this case, the waveform is quite dynamic, so I want to make sure that I am keeping the level consistent before I start to boost frequencies. Otherwise, if I boost frequencies first, then what's going to happen is that the compressor is going to react differently, and it's going to start to compress a lot of frequencies that I don't want to compress in this case. So I'm going to go add the CLA 76 compressor, and there's two revisions of this. It's the Bluey edition. This edition is a lot more distorted sound. It's a lot grainier. The Blackie is a lot cleaner, so I'm going to go with the Bluey. And that's already adding quite a lot of punch, but I just want to quicken the release. So all the way to 7 is the fastest, and that's the slowest. So I want a fairly fast release. And quite a slow attack. I'll take it off. So just going to match this volume level. As you hear, it's adding way more punch. So I'm going to keep that in there. Next thing I'm going to do is bring up the snare bottom. I don't usually gate the snare bottom as it's really quite dynamic, and a lot of the time if you gate it, you might choke off a lot of the rattle, which you want to keep. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add another channel strip plugin, just like the same one. It's one of my favorites really. It's the SSL channel. I'm going to use the G channel this time. And I'm going to use a high pass filter to remove anything that I want. Usually just set it to 60 Hertz. I'm going to go to add a lot of presence. So presence around 7K. So I want to bring out a lot of that wire, a lot of rattle. Let's have a listen to this. You hear it's adding way more air to the drums. So now I'm just going to compress it. Usually 4:1 ratio. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to solo them, and I'm going to check their phase. Yeah, they were in phase, so I don't need to do that. So now I'm just going to bring it down. I'm going to blend it together. In this case, it's a little bit rattly, so I might add a little bit of an expander. Okay, so that's sounding good. And next I'm going to move to my overheads. I'm just going to bring them up. Okay. So I'm going to start mixing like I normally do, and then I'm going to go over what I've done. Let's play the song again. Okay, so what I was doing there was going to the snare drum. I was adding some brightness around 7K. So you really hear the snare open up in the mix. Similar thing around 5K. So adding some there. and then anywhere around 300, 200 hertz to add more body. And I was adding a high pass filter, which cleaned up the drum as well. Then onto the overheads, I was adding some saturation, high pass filter around 90 hertz. And I was using a de-esser. And what this de-esser does is, if selecting on the frequency you want, it's a compressor that just focuses on the frequency you want to find. So around 4K, it sounds quite harsh on the cymbals. So I did 3 dB gain reduction there. So that way when the cymbal hits, on the hi-hat hits, it's going to find that frequency and it's going to turn it down. So that way that area is not being exposed too much and it can sound very harsh on the ears, like I mentioned, and brittle. Next, I just want to add a little bit more brightness right up the top. So 11K, it's a bit of a high shelf there. And I'm going to turn down these frequencies as well at 4K. Like I compressed them, I just want to turn them down more. And there's a big, not a big cut here, but it's 3 dB at around 320 hertz. Around here to 400, your drums could sound boxy and muddy. So this move here goes a long way. I usually do this on almost all my rock kits. And then I'll change this to parametric, but around 160 hertz, I just felt that the overall drum sounded a bit thin for my liking, and just wanted to sound fuller overall, as your overheads are really your full picture of the whole kit. So we'll move on now to our rooms. Just gonna solo them and hear what they sound like in solo. There's really not much bottom end here, so I want the drums to sound a bit fuller. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have to try and remove some high end in order to make it fuller. Okay, so we'll get this and we'll blend this in. And I want to add some more low end to the kick drum. So we'll go and get the, it's my favorite plugins. It's in it's in Ada, I think. I'm trying to find the Waves R bass. So we'll set it to around 50 hertz. Bring this intensity down. It's just going to add a lot more low end. Next thing we'll do is we'll bring up a hi-hat. And all we're going to do is we're just going to add high pass filter to remove a lot of the low end we don't need. Next we'll move on to these toms. Try to find some tom rolls. Shoot around there. I'm going to load up Slate VMR, the virtual mix rack. And this plugin's really got one of my favorite gates. It's just fantastic. Like, it's a really good gate you could hear there. So next thing I'm going to do is add some saturation. And we add some revival. So what it's going to do is just makes it a bit fuller, thicker. And then I want to EQ it. I'm going to move some of the bottom end that I don't really need, around 60 hertz. That's a fullness. Around 130 is going to fill up the toms. Cut out what we don't need. It's around 700. It's not really sound deeper. I want it to sound fuller and deeper. So let's bring it down. It's around there is nice. Add a bit of definition. And a bit more of the stick attack. Tighten this cue so I can really focus in the frequency more. So that's got a bit more definition to it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to compress it. So we're going to find, let's try this. This is based on 1176 as well. Slow attack, fast release. So yeah, slow attack, fast release. Yep. And again, all you need is 3 to 5 dB gain reduction. So the input, your input is your threshold in this case, and you really set that so the way you can see how much gain reduction you're doing here in the VU meter. So we want to aim for 3 to 5, and then your output is your overall volume level. So as you would increase your input, you would decrease your output overall. So that's pretty good right there. And then all we're going to do is we're just going to copy this over to our other parts of the drum kit. So if you hit Option and drag, you can move that. And next what we're going to do is we're going to pan these. So we're going to go 60 left, 40, and around there. And we're going to just loop a section. And we're gonna go and we're gonna adjust our levels. We just want to hear it so that way it sits on top of what the overheads are doing. You don't want to be too loud and too noticeable. We just want it to kind of feel like it's, you know, being a natural drum kit that you're hearing in the room. So we'll keep on going. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some reverb. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to go to my rooms and I'm going to go to new track and I'm going to call it drum verb. And we're going to make sure that output is going to our drum bus. And we're going to solo safe it. And what we're going to do is we're going to add just the overheads in our rooms to this drum reverb. We're not going to have any of the mics that are directly pointed onto the drums, as that's going to give us a different sound. That's going to give us more of a type of dramatic effect. What we want is to have the reverb make the drums sound bigger inside the room. As if you put it on the snare drum, for example, you're going to get the proximity of the reverb into the mic. So it's a different sound, but this is more of a natural sounding, natural sound that we're going for. As you could hear that everything was recorded live together. So you want it to all sound cohesive, natural, but also, to sound full and polished and energetic. So we're going to add a reverb. And my reverb of choice is the Liquid Sonics VerbSpec Classics. And a good, if you've got a device here, this is the types of reverb. A good one to go with definitely is a room. And we're going to go to the Music Club preset. So usually decay time around 1 second. This is how long the tail of the reverb is going to go on for. And what we're going to do is we're just going to load up the send. We're going to add it to the overheads as well. We're going to add this one to the overheads. You can see it's making the drums sound bigger and fuller. And last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to EQ the reverb. So it goes to our 7-band EQ. I'm just going to remove all the low end and the high end. So that way we're stuck with the mid-range. And this is going to focus the reverb more. And it's not going to make it all sound too washed in the mix. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to add some compression to our drums. We're going to do some parallel compression. So we are going to go and we're going to make a new track here. And we're just going to call it Drum Comp. And we're going to set it just around there. And we're going to copy this across. And the reason why we're doing this is that we can blend in the sound of our compressed drum kit with the sound of our original, sounds. And we could turn down a kick and snare. So that way we're doing less compression here, but applying more to our overheads and our indirect microphones. And we're also going to add some to the reverb. And not too much to the reverb. Alright, now we're going to make sure that this again goes to our drum bus. Alright. So again, make sure we're in solo safe. And we are going to add... Okay, we're going to go and add FET style compressor, the CL1176. And we keep on the bluey. And we're going to use quite a high ratio. We're going to go 8:1. And we're going to set relatively fast attack, quick release all the way. And we're going to slam this thing to doing 10 to 20 dB of gain reduction. So we're going to bring this output control out, and it's going to get fairly loud. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to EQ it. I'm just going to use it as our comp. And the way I'm going to EQ this is I'm going to try and take down a lot of the high end. So that way everything's just going to sound a bit fuller and not so bright and brutal. I'm also just going to find some frequencies that are a bit harsh in the ears. So around 4K, we're just going to duck that down a bit. And here's some around boxiness, around 500. Just going to add a bit there. So here that's making everything bigger and fuller. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this down, we're going to blend this in. Okay, the last thing we're going to do is we're just going to add some bit of compression to our overall mix. So we're going to use a VCA style compressor. We're going to use the SSL compressor. And the way we're going to set this is we're just going to use a light ratio. We're just going to go 2:1. This is not doing too much. Hit the analog button in and set it fast attack. So slow attack, fast release. And we bring this back down.